continuing with chapter 24, verse 10, there was just a couple of Rashis that we didn't yet study there. And it says, underneath his throne there was like brick made out of sapphire, and it was the appearance of the heavens in its purity. So Rashi says, what does it mean, like the appearance of the heaven in its purity? Once the Jewish people were redeemed, there was light and gladness before him. What does that mean? It was like the appearance, Ketar Gulo. This means Lashon Hara, an expression of an image. With Tahor and purity, Rashi says Lashon Barur v'Tzalul. It was clear and unsullied. And then verse 11, V'atzilei b'nei Yisrael, and to the nobles of the children of Israel, Lo shalach yado. God did not stretch forth his hand. Vayachazu et Elokim, vayochlu vayishtu. And they viewed God, and they ate and they drank. Well, she says, what is this referring to? This refers to Nadav and Avihu HaZakenim. Him Nadav and Avihu HaZakenim. Baruch atah Adonai Elohim Shakol Nidro. Lo shalach yado. He did not set forth his hand. Mikol shahayu ruyim l'shtaleach b'hem yad. They were supposed to be killed at that time, but God did not do it. You had a question, David? No. Vayachazu et Elokim, and they were viewing God. They looked at him. What was their sin? They looked at God with familiarity. They weren't supposed to be so familiar with him. They were eating and drinking when they were supposed to be praying. You're not supposed to be eating and drinking while you're praying. That's the Midrash. And Onkelos does not translate it that way. Onkelos says, and they saw the glory of Hashem, and they rejoiced in their sacrifices, which were accepted graciously, as if they ate and drank. So Onkelos doesn't see it as a sin, but Rashi sees it as a sin. Yes. I'm sorry, can you say that again? David, I missed what you said.
Oh, it says they envisioned God, they gave them infinitely, and the words are believe gods. So
well, yeah. Believe gas. Gas is like, it's like overly familiar. No, they looked at him as overly familiar, like, "Hey, buddy, what's going on?" But this was God, and they looked at him as though he was like he was their buddy. So that's the Rashi's approach. That's Rashi's approach, that this was a sin. But Onkelos doesn't see it that way. Onkelos doesn't look at it that way.
It's pretty stunning.
Eating and drinking. That's Rashi's reading a bit, but Onkelos looks at it the other way. They saw the glory of God, so they rejoiced in their sacrifices, which were graciously accepted, as if they ate and drank. Onkelos says that they weren't eating or drinking; they brought sacrifices to God, and it was as though they ate and drank, which is a very, very different reading, much more charitable reading towards the people.
And it also shows the greatness of Rashi. Like, most people won't say, but my opponent says this. Like, he's not an opponent, but just like the idea that, he could have said, if you want to look at Onkelos, go look at Onkelos, but don't. He didn't have to write that. But I think that's part of the.
Well, he's showing us, right? It's a very good point. He's showing us that Onkelos disagrees with him. It's a very good point. Very, very good point.
Also, God has no body, so there's no way to look at it.
Well, they could look at the throne. They could look at they look too closely. It means that they delve too deeply into the. They delve too deeply into it. Hold on. Okay. Vayomer, okay, Atzilei, what does that Atzilei mean? Rashi says this is Lashon Gidolim. This means the great ones, the noble people. And he gives some examples. Now it says Vayomer Hashem al Moshe. Now God says to Moshe. Okay, before we go to that, let me just see if anybody comments on the Rashis that we just read. There were some very deep Rashis, so I want to see if we have some commentaries by the Rebbes on these commentaries. Hold on. Here we go. So the Kotzker Rebbe comments on there's a lot of commentary on the words Naaseh and Ishma, but they don't comment on the Rashi, so we won't go into it. They comment on the words that we said, that they said in verse 7, we will do and we will listen. But there is no Rashi. We're trying to focus on what the Rashi says and understanding the Rashi. So chapter 24, verse 12, Vayomer Hashem al Moshe, God says to Moshe, Allah Elai Hahara, come up to me to the mountain, Vayesham, and be there. I'll give to you these tablets of stone, Torah mitzvah shakatavti l'dorotam, and the Torah and the command and the mitzvah that I have written l'horotam, to instruct them. Rashi says, when is this taking place? He says, come, God said to Moshe, after the giving of the Torah, come to the mountain and be there for 40 days. Meaning to say, the Torah was given. And on this, when did Moses get the tablets? He got them 40 days after the 10 Commandments were said, after the Torah was said at Sinai. He didn't get them on the day of the 6th of Sivan or whatever day the Torah was given. He got them 40 days later. And that's what God is telling Moshe here. Come up to me to the mountain and be there for 40 days. Give these tablets of stone and the Torah and the mitzvah that I wrote to instruct them. Oh, so now this is a beautiful Rashi. Rashi says, all of the 613 commandments are included in the 10 commandments. Because it says in the verse, take the tablets of stone and the Torah that I wrote to instruct them. Well, God didn't write the Torah. So Rashi's telling us within the 10 commandments, within those 10 commandments, there's allusion to all 613 commandments. Rabbeinu Saja Piresh Ba'as Haros Sheisad, and Rabbeinu Saja made a poem in which he gave explanation how you can have all the 613 commandments found within the 10 commandments. So if you looked at them closely enough, you see that the 10 commandments are really just headlines.
Is this the one that has 620 letters or the one in Beit Hanan? Because I was told once that 620 is the 613 plus the 7, either rabbinical or Noachide.
I don't know, maybe you have to count.
No, I'm saying it's either these or the ones in Beit Hanan.
I think it's this one. I think
I
it's this one. I think I counted once. I think it's this one. I counted once. So Moshe and Moshe got up with his assistant Joshua, and Moshe went up to the mountain of God. Rashi says, so this is a beautiful Rashi. Moshe got up and Yeshua's assistant, and Moshe went up to the mountain of God. So Rashi says, I have no idea. Lo yadati ma tivo shel Yeshua kan. I don't know what Joshua's doing here. What's Joshua doing there? And I say, I just say that he was like a student escorting the master until the place where the limits of the mountain were. He was a student, the teacher shouldn't walk by himself, so the student was walking him until the place where he was no longer allowed to walk. He couldn't walk past there. It says, from that point on, Moshe went up on his own. And Joshua pitched his tent there. He waited there for 40 days. Because we find that when Moshe went down, Joshua heard the sound of the people with their trumpeting. Joshua was not with them. So Joshua was waiting at the foot of the mountain. And to the elders, he said, and to the elders, he said, you stay here until we return back to you. Aaron and Hur will be with you. Whoever has something to say should go to them. Hur disappears after this. That's why Rashi quotes the Midrash that says Hur was arguing with him about the golden calf and he was killed. This is the last mention of Hur. Rashi says Hur ben Ashel Miriam, he was the son of Miriam. Va'aviv Kalev ben Yefuna, and his father was Kalev, as it states. What?
I know.
Hur, we're saying right now who he was. Rashi's saying right now. Hur was the son of Miriam, and his father was Kalev. As it states, Vayikacho Kalev et Efrat v'teud lo et Hur. Efrat is Miriam, as it appears in Sota. So Hur was Miriam's son and Kalev's son. That's who he was. Miriam married
the first
Kalev.
two Dibur Matchil.
What?
Kenim Amar and Shvulanu Bazeh. Rashi.
All right, I skipped that. So
Sorry.
as Kenim Amar, he said to the elders as he left the camp, wait for us here. Wait here with the other people to be ready to judge any dispute. And he says, "Mi bal dvarim, whoever has words." Let's just see if there's any commentary on this. Hold on one second. This is like the Kotzker Rebbe said something on this that's just so it sounds so modern in his explanation. It says in the verse, we just read it, he says, go up the mountain. He says, God said to Moshe, go up to the mountain and be there. So it says the Kotzker, of course, if you're going up the mountain, you're going to be there. Why does he have to say, go up the mountain and be there? Where else is he going to be? Follow the question? So the Kotzker answers, it means that even if you go and try to go to the mountaintop, you're able to get there, but you're not able to remain there. So he was standing on the mountain, but maybe his head will be in another place. So the main point is not the ascent, but to remain there. And not to be above and below at the same time. That's the idea. The main point is to ascend. Hold on one second. Just give me 1 second. I want to, hold on 1 second. Back in business. Okay, so we're up to the verse 14. And then we just read verse 14, and now we're up to verse 15. Vayal Moshe al Ahar, vayachas anan es har. Moshe went up the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain. Next verse, Vayishkon kvod Hashem al har Sinai, and the glory of God dwelt on Mount Sinai. Vayachasu anan sheishes yamim, and the cloud covered it for 6 days. Vayikra Moshe bayom hashvi'i mitoch hanan, and he called to Moshe on the 7th day from the cloud. But the problem is, when is this taking place? We said that this is now going to be taking place before the giving of the Torah. So Rashi says there's a dispute about this. Some say these are the first 6 days up to Rosh Chodesh, and some say that these are, it's obviously not that, but there's a dispute about it. So Rashi's saying, and we'll see the other comment in, he's going to cite the other comment in the next Rashi. But one opinion is we've gone backward, even though before he says that it was taking place after the 6th of Sivan. Now Rashi says this verse is taking place before the first 6 days from Rosh Chodesh Shavuos, from Rosh Chodesh Sivan. It says Vayachaseu anan, and the cloud covered the mountain. Rashi says Vayikra Moshe bayom hashvi'i, and then God called to Moses on the 7th day from the cloud. So why? He's calling to say the 10 commandments. And Moshe and everybody else was standing up. But the text gives honor to Moshe by singling him out, because we have a problem. The 10 commandments were not just given to Moshe, they were given to all of Israel. So why does it say God only called to Moshe? Really, God called to all of Israel. So therefore, the text is giving Moshe honor. And some say that this period of 6 days takes place after the 10 commandments, Rashi says. It was on the first of the 40 days after the 10 commandments. And it's teaching you that whoever goes into the divine presence requires 6 days of separation. So there's this verse that says that the cloud covered it 6 days and then it called to Moshe. There's two opinions about it. Either it's God's calling to Moshe is the 10 commandments, or it's God calling to Moshe 6 days after the 10 commandments. Follow that, David? So we don't even know this basic verse. There's a basic dispute about. Amari kavod Hashem ke'ish ochelos b'rosh ha'ar, and the appearance of the glory of God was like a consuming fire on the top of the mountain in the eyes of the children of Israel. Vayavo Moshe b'socha anan vayal ha'ar, and Moshe went into the cloud, and he ascended the mountain, and Moshe was in the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. Rashi says he ascended and he was into the mountain. Anan zeh min ashanhu. This cloud is like smoke. And God made a path for it inside Moshe. Wow. I don't remember this Rashi. We usually get stuck in the earlier Rashis because they're so exciting on the parasha, and this is such a mystical Rashi. That God made a path for Moses inside the cloud to walk through it. You had a question, Moshe? It looks like a cloud, but it's smoky. It's smoky. Okay, so now that we did this, now we could go back to the beginning of the parasha. I wanted to make sure we got the end. So now we can go back to the beginning. Chapter 21, verse 1. Chapter 21, verse 1. Ve'ela Mishpatim, these are the laws that you shall place before them. Ve'ela Mishpatim, this is such an important Rashi. We just read about the 10 commandments on Mount Sinai. And then also, to make Rashi's question even stronger, we go at the end of the portion and we talk about this vision at Sinai, this revelation at Sinai. And in between, we have the stuff that's civil law, tort law. why are we putting this tort law next to the revelation at Sinai? Can you imagine if you're sitting in your law class? Do you remember tort law, Jeff? Do you remember when you studied that? And the teacher says to you, this is like revelation. This is like the revelation at Sinai. And they didn't say that in your school, David. Did they say that? No, probably not. But that's what's going on here. Why is it saying? Why is it saying this? So the commentaries say that Rashi is going to give us an example, but the comments are so Rashi says the following: whenever it says Elah, it would be disqualifying the earlier statement, like it's but ve'elah, and it says ve'elah mishpatim, it's mosif al harishonim. It's adding on to the earlier discussion, just like the earlier discussion was from Sinai. Marishonim mi Sinai, af elu mi Sinai. So it's to tell us that these tort laws are from Sinai. Rashi asks the question, and his question is that, and he says, why is this passage of torts, civil law, next to the altar? To tell you that you have to put the Sanhedrin next to the altar. But there's a lot of discussion about it. It's to tell us there's one thing to have a revelation, but the most important way to react to that revelation is through its manifestation through tort law. That's the most important way. Do you know what tort law means, Elon? Tort law? Okay, we'll have one of the lawyers here. Jeff, why don't you define it? Like let's say somebody hits your car to us. Let's say this is what happened. A lot of people, their trees fell down last night. A tree from your house fell down into, knocked over your neighbor's fence. Who's responsible to pay? That's the law. It governs this type of activity. What's that doing next to the revelation at Sinai? So the idea is that you have to properly apply those laws if you want to really be worthy of the Sinai essence. That's the idea, that's where Hashem's revelation is made clear. That's where Hashem's revelation is made clear through the application of the dinim, of the laws. So Rashi says, that you shall place before them, Moshe, God said to Moshe, don't think to say, I'll teach them one chapter or one law 2 or 3 times, and that's sufficient. No, it needs to be memorized in their mouth. They need to memorize it. And don't say, I don't want to bother myself to give them an explanation. It says that you shall place before them. You have to place before them the laws like a Shulchan Aruch, like a set table that you can eat from. Meaning to say, you have to, God tells Moshe, place out the laws before everybody like a Shulchan Aruch, like a set table. That all they have to come in is read it. All they have to come in is read it. Of course, the Shulchan Aruch takes its name from here, because that became the code of Jewish law, because it was too hard for people to look up the Talmud and find the proper way to act. But really, if you had the Talmud, but not everybody did. Not everybody had the Talmud at their fingertips. So it has to be in the finished product. These are the laws that you shall place before them, Rashi says, before them, but no, not before the non-Jews. Meaning to say that you're not supposed to go to the non-Jewish courts. Even if you know that in this specific law that they judge it like the laws of Israel, nevertheless, you're not supposed to go to the non-Jewish courts. Someone who brings a Jew to a court of a non-Jewish court is desecrating God's name because he's honoring their idolatry. by giving it importance. So you're not supposed to go to the non-Jewish courts. Nowadays, a lot of people do because they're fighting over the betin, which betin to go to. They can't agree which rabbis to go to. But it's a halacha that you're not supposed to go to the non-Jewish courts. Hey, let's see how you doing. All right. Let's stop at mincha now. Yasher koach. Beautiful, everybody.